Hello, hello. Yeah, I got got some nice bags under my eyes. So, anyway, that's what happens when you're me, or when you're getting old. So, anyway, go ahead. I'm making fun of it. I make fun of it first. I take the power away from you. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation and a controversial one that I'm not going to delve into today. What I want to talk about was arete and enlightenment. Arete, the Greek word uh, which is Western, enlightenment, which is used in the Buddhist philosophy, which is Eastern. But those two come together in their wisdom. Um, I like to, find the crossovers. And, when you look at the wisdom in the Western and Eastern, like I've said, you know, hundreds of years or thousands of years or thousands of miles separate, and we don't, we're looking at times where there was no internet, there was no um you know communication methods that were instant. um so that how they got shared or how they got passed, it actually was that wisdom um was inculcated in the goodness of humanity. That's my belief. And so um arate is a word that's been thrown around and um, honors societies and um, the crests of universities and of higher learning and things like that. But um, it's actually arete is it's more of a quest. It's not something that is to be acquired, and it's actually living a virtuous life and living a virtuous life in every dimension. So it's not just in, arete or this academics or arete in this athletics or arete in this in, uh, financial, pavilions or, arenas or whatever the term is. Pavilions. I don't know where I pulled that word out of, but um, it's all things and all the dimensions of holistically looking at how virtuous you are. And enlightenment is similar. How overall good you are. And that's not how good you are for yourself, how good you are for others and humanity and your place in the world and to animals and to nature and to other human beings. So just if arete can never really be acquired, if that's what the ancient Greeks believed, enlightenment is seemed to be thought of as not coming in one lifetime, that it takes maybe a multitude of lifetimes to acquire enlightenment. So the Dalai Lama is, maybe someone who's in their belief system of reincarnation lived 1,000 lifetimes. So enlightenment doesn't come quickly. Um, but see, that's where arete or enlightenment, where we as massively distracted human beings, um, where we have lost the desire to seek, find, and ultimately understand the big ideas. So the quest for information and true deep information takes time. It takes energy. It takes effort. Um, and then once you find it, it's not just simply like you found it, here it is. It takes then time for you to read it and understand it. I actually had a college professor share some articles with me, and so I found some great information. And I am on page 12 or 13, um, highlighting, and I sought the idea, I found the ideas, and now I'm working to understand it. Um, and I don't know that I'll ever understand it, because the topic in which she is describing is very dynamic and complex. So really coming to understand it is um, maybe a futile task, but actually one I'm willing to embark on, because maybe in another 5 years I'll reach out to another professor and see what science they have done. Because back in 2010, 2012, between that time, Harvard was doing things on exposure to cold and brown fat and all this sort of stuff. And they were very reluctant to say that it was factual. So there's been some scientific studies done, but they always had warnings about hypothermia and you know viral and bacterial infections happening more during the cold months and things like that. So um, now, 10 years later, um, after a lot of work, Susanna Soberg has done the work, has done the science. That's and so I'm not trying to get, but to truly understand something, things change, things evolve. People, understand things at different times and in different ways. But it is our idea to, like I said, seek, find, and understand the big ideas. But I get into a very philosophical idea of understanding. Do we truly ever understand anything? Um, and there's a song by AWOL Nation. It's called Sail, and I love it. A lot of people like it. I think it was the opening song to the original series of Vikings. That's where I first heard it, and it caught my ear. Loved it. Um, and then I think they went off. It was in one of my favorite shows at a climactic point in Longmire. Um, but there's a line that says, "Blame it on my ADD," and maybe it is my ADD, because I struggle with being satisfied with one discipline. So I change, I look, I try to um, question, and it's also a fault. I am argumentative. I I question. I don't accept things for what they are, um, and so it's not always a good quality. I kind of always try to see, well, could you do this? Could you do that? Could it be better? Could you do this? How do you do that? How could it be simpler? How could it be easier? How could you relax more? Um, so it's not always about synthesizing things and making them better. It's sometimes about, like, well, how can you streamline it and make it easier and more efficient and less stressful? But again, that back and forth in my ramblings right now are, blame it on my ADD. And so when you look at Arete and Enlightenment, it's kind of, it's nice. You could talk about it forever. You could seek it forever, and you may never get it. You may never understand it. You may never acquire it. And if that is the quest of really truly understanding and reaching it, you will maybe never have the opportunity, because you're just like Frankel said, or Rollo May, I can't remember, aiming so hard at the target, you miss everything on the outside. And come to find out that the way that you shoot an arrow now, they've taken the questioning and the human error out, and it just releases the second you set it. Boom, they release it. Um, it's that you miss all the things that you need to, um, and the whole thing with arete and enlightenment and the quest to be these things is, it's going to be a constant barrage of opposing thoughts and opinions. And how do you want to get to this point of living a virtuous life? Well, how can your desire to live virtuously be impacted when other people aren't? um it's really, you can't impose your will on someone else, and I think that's the whole thing. And even with these discussions, I hope that you question it. And living a virtuous life, it's like, don't you don't have to do really anything unless you choose to. I mean, I think that's free will and a different discussion. But um, with all the influences and everything out there, it's like, if it's a good idea for you, then it's a good idea for you. just because it's a good idea for me or someone else, or the way that someone, for better or for worse, they really should not determine how you live your life. And um, I don't have a topic that I could call my life's work. Um, I think maybe my work is working on living. And that goes back to, the Spanish that always said, Americans, you guys live to work, and us Spaniards, we work to live. We work to try and find how we can live the best life, um, do the things that really encourage our spirit. Because sometimes the things that, you know, we get into our cars and we sit in the traffic and we go to, those are actually not always the things that are enriching our lives. Everybody's working for the weekend, that song too, right? So you're really working. And so the Spaniards are constantly working for their weekend. They are um, looking to live in that way. And I think that goes back to um, seeking the bigger ideas. And when we look at Arete and Enlightenment and the Eastern and the Western ideas and how they match up together, that we should be trying to seek out those bigger ideas. And the wonderful thing about that is um, I talk to my philosophy students about a word called apathia, and everybody thinks it means apathy. They try to make that word like, what is it, like simulation or whatever, and it does. It sounds like apathy, but it is actually, it's not apathy. It has, and that's, and I love it. And when I ask kids about the word panacea, I think they thought it was like an epoch, like, the Jurassic, or Panagea, the continents, which we talked about, which I thought was great. When you talk about different words, they make kind of that, they try to find a likeness, but there's just so many uh, words like eudaimonia and things that have a much, much deeper meaning, and it's meaning outside of a definition. Oof, that's getting into the weeds, but yeah, I think that as you look at it, um, you have to really, really try to fight off that immediate gratification, and understand that words and ideas can't be simply defined. Um, Understanding cannot be always arrived at immediately either, and fight off the instant, the instant. Everything that we have is instant. So try to fight it. It's um, not something we're going to get rid of. It's not something that we have to completely embrace, but it's also something that we don't have to completely deny. Um, the world, we have to operate within the world as it is. We have to see it for what it is, and we have to be relatively comfortable with some of the different ways to operate within it. But we don't have to completely lose everything else. So hopefully you look into Arete and Enlightenment a little bit deeper. Um, Hopefully you look at this and be like, this guy's an idiot. He didn't give me any answers. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Um, and I, I I mean, honestly, I don't know anything about cars, the engines and how they work. Um, I don't, math escapes me constantly. I don't write well. I'm not the strongest reader. Um, and right there, I think I've proven to you how little and how poor I am at many things. So um, I think the more that we can admit how little we know, um, it it's not to be self-loathing or loathing or self-belief hindering. It's actually optimistic that if we're still alive, we still have opportunities to learn. We can reflect on how much we have learned, and um, move forward, understanding that the world is open with so much information. It's just us kind of finding what information, and the different information that is relevant, truthful, and clear. So Yeah, reach out if you have any questions on Areté and Enlightenment. Yeah, I definitely not going to be there in my lifetime. Um, so I hope you guys all have a good day, but you know, do something, say something, say hello to a stranger, maybe. Just keep it simple.